Okay. Good morning, everybody. 11:28 a.m. Eastern Time on Wednesday, November 9th, 2022. Chad is over here recording live from Duluth, GA. I'm filming on the tablet, but I have it just kind of face down on the desk because I'm typing. This is a writing session. This is a typing session. We are typing right now. We are recording on the Tascam audio recorder. So the music that you hear in the background is the original soundtrack score for Silence of the Lambs. This actual track is called Bulletin Board. I have it on loop for this entire writing session. We're just gonna loop one song from the soundtrack the entire time we're writing this one story. So we can stay in this vibe because I like this vibe. It's not too creepy. It's just more like, what the did I just step in? Kind of. It's like a squishy sound right after a step in the mud, but there's no mud. You just heard mud, and you're like, oh crud, you know. So, what did I just get involved in? I thought this was a regular. What was it? I want to say Glenn Close. I wanted to say Glenn Close at first, but that's Cruella de Vil from the actual live action version of 101 Dalmatians. I meant to say Scott Glenn. If anyone's listening to this and they're really into movies, I didn't have to explain all that. As soon as I said Glenn Close, you knew I was trying to say Scott Glenn. And you also knew who Glenn Close was, which was, I would think, The Devil Wears Prada. That was that bitch. She's always playing the goddamn devil. Glenn Close is a goddamn devil. She's So how we're doing this, we're watching the charts at the same time. We're just demo trading, nothing major, just demo trading. Let me turn this down, I guess, a little bit. Turn it down halfway. Turn it down a lot. Turn it down a lot a bit. So this is story number 3. This is the horror stories. This is the horror stories. Dahmer's bedtime stories, right? Started on October 17th, 2022. Now, like a week from now, that would be a month ago. And I only have 3 stories done. But this is the 3rd story right here. The 2nd story was done on almost a month ago. It was like 3 weeks ago. It was the 20th. It was 3 days after I started. So I was able to do it once every 2 days, once every 3 days for the first 2 stories, and then I just kind of really fell off of it because I was going through other stuff and making other projects. I wasn't writing any other project though. I did start writing another project like yesterday, so I'm just gonna kind of include everything in like a one big book of short stories anyway. Just kind of really trying to figure out that whole time commitment of one story, how I'm going to do this. So I just do short stories, and so I had this other idea I was gonna start after the other idea I just started. The other idea I just started was like a spy novel kind of short story about a spy, but foreign market spy. So it would be like an analogy for the trading I'm always talking about. I'm trying to make a creative fictional story about the trading, like an action story, a Matrix type story, a Kill Bill type story, a Mafia type story, a spy movie type story. Something really, really entertaining that also teaches you the lessons of the financial markets. Something that's like totally, that in itself makes me the GOAT. That's why it's so important to me to do something like that. Now, this story with the horror story, the Dahmer's bedtime stories, this whole concept is more like, this is just me being able to get my rage out. You know what I'm saying? This is just me being able to get my rage out, my anger, you know what I'm saying? My frustration. Like, that's what that's for. And then I had this other story I wanted to kind of start yesterday. Recently, man, like, because of all of this like emotional stuff I'm going through, that's why I'm doing the horror to kind of have some kind of release of anger. I don't just, I might scream at somebody in real life, but that's about the most of my anger, and I don't really want to be screaming at people, nigga. Like, you know what I'm saying? But that's the most, and so that's what I mean. I need some kind of release, so I don't have to be screaming at motherfuckers, man. But I have so much built up in me, bro. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's just like, man, just leave me alone. Just leave me alone. Like, I'm begging you to leave me alone. Just leave me the fuck alone. Like we don't have to be friends. We don't have to communicate. We don't have to talk. Just leave me alone. Just leave me the fuck alone. Like, I'm sick of other people. I'm fucking sick of you all. I'm just sick of other people. Real shit. I'm sick of other people. Real shit. So that's why I'm doing this Dahmer story shit. It's like fucking, I'm sick of motherfuckers, man. So let me just write something where I could just show how sick of motherfuckers I am, and I could just show like a sick story. You know, I could write a story about someone who's just sick of other people, and then he just fucking kills them. You know, because I can't do that shit in real life. So I need some kind of release, man. You know, if I was violent, you bitches would have real problems. So here you go. Here's my way of fucking showing it right here. I'm gonna fucking write something so fucking sick and twisted. It's like, what the fuck, right? So with this story, I wanted to have multiple perspectives. I just wanted to have multiple perspectives. I'm writing in first person perspective. I wanted to have multiple perspectives. Now, this next story that I was telling you that I wanted to work on, I didn't start it yet. I'm about to hybrid it into this one. That's why I'm bringing it up. I've been feeling like Michael Corleone emotionally. Emotionally, I've been feeling like Michael Corleone. Like I'm becoming someone I didn't want to be emotionally. Emotionally, right? So, like, in order to achieve where I wanted to go, like, it all worked out. I'm getting the things that I want out of life. But it came with an emotional sacrifice, a huge emotional sacrifice. I had to totally sacrifice the sanctity of my emotions, the sanity of my emotions, my emotional sanity. You know what I'm saying? Just like, it's just gone, nigga. You know, I had to give that shit up for what I wanted. And it's a tough pill to swallow, but it be like that sometimes. And the cookie crumbles that way often. You know, that's often the way the cookie crumbles. That's often the way the cookie crumbles. So I wanted to write something about like the Michael Corleone. Like wasn't necessarily gonna be fiction. It was just really gonna be like a diary kind of thing. Like, I feel like I'm turning into Michael Corleone, and then I wanted to like try to make it into a story, kind of make it into a character or whatnot. But it was like, what if a fucking serial killer felt like that? What if a person felt like I was turning into Michael Corleone and then he became a serial killer? Because technically Michael Corleone was a serial killer, but he never had to really murder anybody himself. So then this story would be the Michael Corleone who was a serial killer himself, actually. Like the actual Michael Corleone who would like be choking a motherfucker out. Like, you never seen Michael Corleone actually jump over the desk and choke a motherfucker out type shit. Just something that simple with no weapon. Just to see that, because you see all the passion Al Pacino has in the when he grabbed Fredo's head and shakes him and shit. I know it was you, Fredo. You know what I'm saying? All that shit, like, and like the look he be giving the motherfucker, and then when he smacked K, that was about the most you've ever seen him hit anybody. He never hit a guy. He just fucking hit maybe he did hit a guy, I don't know, but like he just really just hit K that one time, and then that was the only time you seen him like lunge out. You know, other than that, you just only seen his facial expression being so angry. But that's the only time you seen him really succumb to his anger physically himself. So I wanted to do something like that. I was gonna start it off like I'm just writing my own diary kind of thing. Like, I'm feeling like this. I'm feeling me. I kind of thing, right? But then I'm about to sit down and write this. And I'm like, yo, hybrid that motherfucker, bro. And then you got something beautiful, because I want to do something wild. It's like I'm gonna do a whole bunch of short stories about this horror shit, right? And it's like first person perspective of a bunch of different serial killers, a bunch of different people. That way I don't have to get caught up in one person, one story, or one nothing. Just a bunch of different people, a bunch of different characters, right? A bunch of different serial killers. And I wanted to really explore the mindset of it and to make this story as scary and creepy as possible without too much violence and gore. Like, that's the whole point. That's gonna have to be my gobstopper. That's my drain plug. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how I keep the tub filled with my morals. It's like, don't go too heavy in the blood and the guts and this. That's not really what it's about. It was just about the essence of like pushing a good person until they're no longer a good person and they just snap. And that's the whole point of like the devil. And And that's why I say fuck people. I'm sick of other people because all you want to do is take advantage of people with compassion until they don't have it anymore, and then you want to tell them that they're the bad guy. So I want to like make these stories where it's like this person that became a fucking serial killer, like he probably wasn't like that all the time. Or some like real serial killers for real are probably like kind of destined to be that, and that's why their life is set up to have gotten pushed to that point to where they snap and become it. So it's not like maybe a person destined to be a serial killer was always going to be a serial killer and they had to go through what they had to go through for them to be, you know. Or you could say fuck it, the person, you know, was destined for something else. Like it's a whole, you know, thing. So I wanted to really focus in on that as far as the like I wanted the scariest part of the movie to be like when you show the flashbacks of the killers as kids when they were being abused and messed up things were happening to them. That's what I wanted the scariest part of the story to be. That's the scariest part. Is like, oh shit, because when you see that halfway through the movie, you're like, oh shit. Now you're like, when you see the person that's abusing the person that grows up to be a serial killer, now you're feeling like this terror, dread kind of thing because it's like, yo, this motherfucker doesn't even know that he's abusing someone who's gonna grow up to be a fucking serial killer. Like, like, if you were to see a clip of Michael Myers as a kid being abused, or Jason Voorhees as a kid being abused, that kind of fictional thing, you would already know. You'd be like, oh, damn, you would feel so bad. Like, if you saw a clip of Hannibal Lecter as a kid being abused, you would be like, oh, man. That in itself would scare you because you know what he becomes. You know what he grows and becomes. So to see the flashback of what he went through that helped influence what he became, that in itself is going to scare you because you know the end and the beginning already. So that's the kind of horror I want to write, and I can get away with that. That's perfectly fine because of the messages in there. It's all about the messages, bro. It's like I'm someone that they're trying to push to the edge, bro. I'm nice, I'm compassionate and shit, and they just want to fucking push you and fucking destroy you, bro. So it's like that's why I'm writing something like this now. So it's like because somebody would read this and be like, oh, that's dark, or this and that, or why you writing this? That same motherfucker, man, it's the same nigga that's fucking testing me, pushing me, taking advantage of my compassion, or this and that, or just like, you know what I'm saying? It's those same kind of people. Or not all the time, you know, they just like, whatever, why you writing that? But they're not necessarily the ones abusing you. But the ones that will abuse you, you know, it's like they just want to push you to that point. And then when you finally get to this point, where you're like, you know what? Fuck them. I'm just gonna write out all this sick and twisted shit that's in my head because I'm not really gonna do this shit. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I know right from wrong. Nigga, like, but I have to express my emotions. I'm a writer. If I'm feeling like there's a horror movie in my head as a writer, I have to write that down. That in itself is gonna stifle everything else I'm trying to write. I can't write no fucking sci-fi kids movie about fucking nothing else if I don't feel that shit. If I'm feeling like this, I have to write a story that gets this out. And then most likely, the story becomes this great historical classic, cult classic, and it's like, well, thank you, God, for allowing that, you know, emotion to be on my heart then, I guess. I didn't like it, but you saw what I did with it. It wasn't, what you have is what you do with it, you know? So, boom, that's what I did. So, story number 3, that's the intro. Let's get into this.